Idda non ti merita, signori. Sei troppo uomo, Idda.
Where did you learn that?
My grandmother.
He sat alone at the best table in Manhattan, a king reduced to waiting, watching the door like a fool in love. But when she walked out and left him there, paralyzed and humiliated, the last person he expected to defend his honor was the waitress who spoke the language of his childhood, in a voice that would change everything. Before we dive into this story, drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. We absolutely love hearing from our global family. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button because tomorrow, we've got another story you absolutely cannot miss. Leonardo Marino didn't do waiting. In his world, people waited for him. Coppos waited in the backrooms of his clubs in Little Italy. Soldiers waited for orders that could end lives or save them. And politicians waited nervously outside his penthouse in Tribeca, knowing that one conversation with him could reshape their entire careers. But tonight, in this upscale Italian restaurant on the Upper East Side, Leonardo Marino waited for a woman who was already 40 minutes late, and the humiliation burned hotter than any bullet wound he'd ever taken. The restaurant was called Basilico, one of those places where reservations required either a month's notice or a last name that carried weight. Leonardo's name carried enough weight to crush buildings. The maitre d' had nearly stumbled over himself clearing the prime table by the window, the one with the view of the Manhattan skyline that made dates feel like scenes from movies. White tablecloth, fresh roses, candlelight that cast warm shadows across the empty chair across from him. Everything perfect, everything ready. Everything except the woman who'd promised to be there at 7:30. It was now 8:15. Leonardo's hands rested on the wheels of his custom carbon fiber wheelchair, the one that had become an extension of him since that night 2 years ago in Chicago. The night the Calabrese family decided that sitting down with Leonardo to discuss territory wasn't enough. They wanted him sitting down permanently. 3 bullets to the spine later, he'd survived, rebuilt his empire from a hospital bed, and buried every single man involved in that hit. The Calabrese family no longer existed in Chicago. But his legs, those were gone forever. He'd made peace with the chair. What he couldn't make peace with was pity. And right now, scanning the restaurant as other diners glanced his way with those goddamn looks that mixed curiosity with sympathy, Leonardo felt something worse than pity. He felt invisible. Not because of the wheelchair, but because Vanessa Chen, the Manhattan socialite he'd been seeing for 3 months, had apparently decided he wasn't worth showing up for. His phone sat face up on the table. No calls, no text, nothing. A waitress appeared at his periphery, careful not to intrude but close enough to be noticed. Leonardo had clocked her the moment he'd arrived. You don't survive 38 years in La Cosa Nostra without noticing everyone in a room. She was young, maybe late 20s, with deep brown skin and natural hair pulled back in a professional bun. Her name tag read Anna. She'd been working the section next to his all evening, moving with a kind of quiet efficiency that spoke of someone who'd mastered the art of being present but not intrusive. "Sir, can I get you anything while you wait?" Her voice was soft, professional, with just a hint of a New York accent underneath. "Another water," Leonardo said, his voice carrying the gravelly edge of too many cigars and too many late nights. "And maybe a realistic estimate of whether the person I'm waiting for is actually coming." Anna's lips curved in the smallest smile, not mocking but understanding. "In my experience, sir, if someone's this late without a call, they've already answered that question. But I've been wrong before." She wasn't wrong. Leonardo knew it in his gut, that instinct that had kept him alive through 2 decades of mob wars and federal investigations. Vanessa wasn't coming. Worse, she'd probably decided hours ago she wasn't coming and hadn't bothered to send even a text. The realization settled over him like a cold fog rolling off the Hudson. "Get me a scotch," he said. "Macallan 25. Neat. Right away, sir." As Anna walked away, Leonardo caught the reflection of himself in the window glass. Still a handsome man, he supposed, strong jaw, dark hair graying at the temples in that way that added gravitas instead of age. The kind of face that photographs well in the society pages when he needed to play the legitimate businessman. The tailored Tom Ford suit didn't hurt. Neither did the Patek Philippe on his wrist that cost more than most people's cars. But none of that mattered when you couldn't stand up to greet your date, couldn't walk her to the car, couldn't do any of the things that apparently still mattered in this world. His phone buzzed. Finally. But it wasn't Vanessa. It was Dante, his consigliere. Boss, the shipment from Miami cleared customs. Everything's in the warehouse. The Russians want to meet Thursday. Leonardo typed back quickly. Handle it. Busy. Busy being stood up, he thought bitterly. Busy proving that even with all the power in the world, a man in a wheelchair was still just a man in a wheelchair to some people. Anna returned with the scotch, placing it carefully on the table. Sir, I don't mean to overstep, but it's getting late. Would you like to order something? The kitchen's still open. Leonardo looked at the empty chair again, then at the waitress. Really looked at her this time. There was something in her eyes. A directness, an honesty that you didn't find often in Manhattan, where everyone was working an angle or wearing a mask. She wasn't looking at him with pity. She wasn't looking at his wheelchair at all. She was just looking at him, one human to another. You think I should eat alone? He asked. I think you should do whatever makes you feel less like you've wasted your evening, sir. Fair enough. Bring me the osso buco. And another one of these. He tapped the scotch glass. As she turned to leave, the front door of the restaurant opened, and Leonardo felt his spine stiffen, an old reflex from when his spine still worked properly. But it wasn't Vanessa. It was worse. Vanessa Chen walked in on the arm of Bradley Hutchinson, a hedge fund manager Leonardo knew from various charity events. Bradley was everything Leonardo used to be. Tall, athletic, the kind of guy who stood with unconscious confidence because he'd never had a reason not to. They were laughing about something, and Vanessa looked radiant in a black cocktail dress that Leonardo recognized because he'd bought it for her last month. She saw him immediately. The laughter died on her lips. For a long moment, they locked eyes across the restaurant, and Leonardo understood everything in that single glance. She hadn't forgotten about their date. She'd deliberately chosen not to come. Chosen instead to show up with someone else at the same restaurant, at a time she knew he'd still be here. This wasn't neglect. This was a message. Vanessa whispered something to Bradley, and they started to leave, but something in Leonardo's expression must have stopped her. Maybe it was the way he sat there, absolutely still, a predator deciding whether to strike. She said something else to Bradley, who looked uncomfortable. Then she walked over to Leonardo's table alone. Leo, she started. Don't. His voice was quiet, but it carried the kind of authority that made men confess to crimes they didn't commit. Don't insult me with an explanation. I didn't plan this, Vanessa said, which was possibly the worst lie Leonardo had heard all week. And he'd spent Tuesday listening to a federal prosecutor claim the Marino family was just a legitimate import-export business. You came to the restaurant where we had a date, with another man, wearing the dress I bought you. Leonardo's jaw tightened. The only thing you didn't plan was getting caught. You thought I'd leave when you didn't show. You didn't count on me being pathetic enough to wait this long. Vanessa's carefully constructed expression cracked slightly. It's not about, Leo, you know I care about you. But this is hard. Tried. I really tried. What's hard, Vanessa? Say it. She glanced around the restaurant, uncomfortable with the attention they were drawing. Several diners were openly staring now. You know what's hard. I can't do the things I want to do. We can't travel the way I like to travel. We can't. Go dancing, Leonardo finished for her. His voice like broken glass. Can't go hiking. Can't do any of the things that require me to stand up. That's what you mean. I'm sorry, Vanessa whispered, and she actually looked sorry, which somehow made it worse. I'm just not strong enough to be what you need. What I need, Leonardo said slowly, is someone who shows up. That's it. That's the entire requirement. You couldn't even manage that. Vanessa's eyes glistened, but Leonardo was beyond caring. She opened her mouth to say something else, then thought better of it. I hope you find her, Leo. Really do. Someone better than me. She walked away, back to Bradley, and they left quickly, the door closing behind them with a soft chime that sounded absurdly cheerful. Leonardo sat there, his untouched scotch in front of him, feeling the stares of everyone in the restaurant. This was worse than the assassination attempt. At least then he'd been shot by professionals who respected his position enough to try to kill him properly. This was humiliation of a different kind, the kind that reminded him that no matter how much power he had, no matter how many soldiers answered to his call, he was still just a disabled man who couldn't keep a woman interested. He reached for his phone to call for his car, ready to end this disaster of an evening, when Anna appeared again. But this time, she didn't approach with professional deference. She walked right up to his table, and when she spoke, it wasn't in English. Ida anti merita signori. Se troppo mu pieta. She doesn't deserve you, sir. You're too much of a man for her. Pure Sicilian. Not the Italian they taught in schools or the sanitized dialect you heard in movies. Real Sicilian, the language of his grandmother, the language of the old country, the language that Leonardo had grown up hearing in his father's house in Brooklyn before the world got complicated. Leonardo's head snapped up, his dark eyes meeting hers with sudden intensity. Where did you learn that? Anna met his gaze steadily, not backing down from the weight of his attention. My grandmother. She worked for the Bonanno family in Brooklyn for 30 years. Housekeeper. She raised me on stories and Sicilian proverbs. Taught me that you can tell everything about a person by how they treat people when they have the power to treat them badly. Leonardo felt something shift in his chest, a crack in the armor he'd built up over the years. Your grandmother worked for the Bonannos. Rosa Mallet. She died 5 years ago, but she made sure I knew where I came from and how to recognize real quality when I saw it. Anna glanced toward the door where Vanessa had exited. That woman. She's not quality. She's pretty wrapping paper around nothing important. You shouldn't talk about customers, Leonardo said, but there was no heat in it. She stopped being a customer the moment she disrespected you in my section, Anna replied. And you're not just a customer, are you? You're Leonardo Marino. I've seen your picture in the papers. Big Manhattan business owner. Import-export. She said the last part with a slight smile that suggested she knew exactly what got imported and exported. Leonardo felt himself smile for the first time all evening. A real smile, not the performance he put on for associates. Your grandmother taught you well. What else did she teach you? That a man's worth isn't measured in what he can do with his legs, but what he does with his word. That honor matters more than appearances. And that the best men are the ones who've been broken and put themselves back together stronger. Anna paused. She would have liked you, I think. Something about the way she said it, simple, honest, with no agenda, hit Leonardo harder than any of Vanessa's apologetic platitudes. This woman, this waitress he'd barely noticed before tonight, saw him. Not the wheelchair, not the disability, not the limitation. Just him. What's your full name? Leonardo asked. Anna Mallet. Anna Mallet, how long have you worked here? 6 months. I'm putting myself through NYU. Business administration. This job pays better than most, and the hours work with my classes. Leonardo pulled out his wallet and extracted a black card, placing it on the table. Send over the check. And add $1,000 to your tip. Anna's eyes widened slightly. Sir, that's not necessary. It's not a tip for service, Leonardo interrupted. It's payment for honesty. For seeing what everyone else in this restaurant pretended not to see. and for reminding me that my grandmother's language still means something." He started to wheel himself away from the table, then paused. "Anna, what are you studying business administration for? What do you want to do?" She seemed surprised by the question. "I want to open my own restaurant someday. Something real where people feel at home. Not a place like this where everything's about being seen. Somewhere with soul." Leonardo nodded slowly, then reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his card. Not a business card, his personal card, the one with just his name and a phone number. He held it out to her. "Call me tomorrow. I own a building in Brooklyn that has a vacant ground floor space. Been looking for the right person to lease it to. Maybe we can talk." Anna stared at the card like it might burn her. "Mr. Marino, I can't afford. We'll discuss terms tomorrow. If your grandmother worked for the Bananos for 30 years, she understood how families work. Sometimes we invest in people because we see something in them. Sometimes we help people because it's the right thing to do." He pressed the card into her hand. "Call me Anna Mallet." He wheeled himself toward the exit, and Anna walked alongside him without being asked, pushing open the heavy door so he could navigate through easily. On the street, his car was already waiting, a modified Mercedes with a driver who understood never to ask questions. "Mr. Marino," Anna said as his driver moved to help him, "Idu havi cori di lion. You have the heart of a lion." Leonardo looked back at her. This young woman who'd appeared in his life at his lowest moment and somehow made him feel like he mattered again. "Tu pori, Anna. Tu pori. You too, Anna. You too." The ride back to his Tribeca penthouse was quiet, but Leonardo's mind was anything but. He kept hearing Anna's voice speaking his grandmother's language, kept seeing the way she'd looked at him without pity, without calculation, without any of the careful distance that everyone else maintained. For 3 months, Vanessa had been trying to convince herself she could handle being with a man in a wheelchair, and tonight she'd finally admitted defeat. But this woman, this stranger, had needed only one conversation to see past the chair entirely. By the time he reached his apartment, Leonardo had made a decision. He called Dante. "Boss, everything okay? You said you were busy. Change of plans. I want a full background check on someone. Anna Mallet, works at Basilico, Upper East Side. Grandmother was Rosa Mallet, worked for the Bananos. I want to know everything. Debts, associations, history, everything." Dante knew better than to ask why. "I'll have it by morning. And Dante, pull the file on that Brooklyn property we've been holding. The one on Court Street. I want to know what it would take to convert it to a restaurant space." "You getting into the restaurant business, boss?" "Maybe I'm getting into the investment business," Leonardo said. "Or maybe I'm just tired of being around people who can't see past the obvious." That night, Leonardo dreamed of his grandmother for the first time in years. She was in her kitchen in Brooklyn, the one that always smelled like garlic and tomato sauce, and she was laughing at something he'd said. When he woke up, he realized what Anna had given him wasn't just a kind word or a defense of his honor. She'd given him back a piece of himself he'd thought died with his grandmother, the part that remembered where he came from, the part that valued loyalty and directness over appearances and pretense. Anna called at 9 the next morning. "Mr. Marino, it's Anna Mallet. From last night. I wasn't sure if you really meant." "I meant it," Leonardo said, cutting through her uncertainty. "Are you free this afternoon? I want to show you the space. I have classes until 3. 4 o'clock then. I'll send a car to pick you up. What's your address?" She gave him an address in Washington Heights, one of those neighborhoods that was gentrifying but still held onto its working-class roots. Leonardo knew it well. The Marino family had connections up there. Small businesses that paid for protection, bodegas that moved certain products. Good neighborhood. Honest people trying to make it. "The car will be there at 3:30, Leonardo said. "Don't worry, it's just a driver." Not anything dramatic. Mr. Marino, I need to be honest with you. I don't know if I can afford whatever you're thinking for rent. I'm living on student loans and waitressing tips. Anna, do you trust your grandmother's judgment? The question seemed to surprise her. Of course. She was the smartest woman I knew. Then trust that if she could recognize quality in the Bananos for 30 years, her granddaughter probably inherited that same judgment. And trust that I'm not in the habit of wasting my time or anyone else's. Just come see the space. We'll figure out the details. There was a long pause. Okay. I'll be ready at 3:30. Leonardo spent the rest of the morning working through business, approving shipments, reviewing financial reports from his legitimate businesses, and discussing strategy for the Russian meeting. But his mind kept drifting to Anna, to the way she'd spoken to him without fear, without agenda. Dante's background check came through around noon, and it was exactly what Leonardo had expected. Clean. Anna Mallet was exactly who she appeared to be. A hard-working student with no criminal record, no debts beyond school loans, no connections to any families or organizations. Her grandmother's record was equally clean. A lifetime of honest work for the Bananos with nothing but commendations from the family. At 3:45, Leonardo's driver called to confirm he'd picked Anna up and they were en route to Brooklyn. Leonardo wheeled himself to the window of his office in the Court Street building. He owned the whole structure, 5 floors of mostly empty space that he'd been holding as a long-term investment. The ground floor had been a restaurant years ago, before the last tenant had gone bankrupt and fled to Florida to avoid debts. Leonardo had been meaning to find a new tenant but had never gotten around to it. Now, looking down at the street where his car was pulling up, Leonardo realized this wasn't about real estate or investment. This was about something else entirely, something he hadn't felt since before the bullets shattered his spine. This was about possibility. Anna stepped out of the car wearing jeans and a simple sweater, looking around the neighborhood with obvious curiosity. She'd been to Brooklyn before. You didn't grow up in New York without knowing Brooklyn. But this part of it, the part that was transforming from old Italian enclave to hipster destination, was clearly new to her. Leonardo's elevator was customized, wide and accessible, and he met her in the lobby. "Welcome to Court Street. This whole building is yours," Anna asked, looking up at the architecture. "All 5 floors. I own a few properties around the city. This one's been vacant too long. Come on, let me show you the space." The ground floor was larger than Anna had probably expected, a sprawling open area with high ceilings, exposed brick, and huge windows that let in natural light. It was dusty and needed work, but the bones were incredible. Leonardo watched Anna's face as she walked through the space, seeing her eyes light up as she imagined possibilities. "The kitchen equipment is outdated, but the layout is good," Leonardo said. "The previous tenant left most of the infrastructure in place. Would need new appliances, new furnishings, but the foundation is solid. Mr. Marino, this is incredible, but I have to be realistic. Even if the rent was somehow affordable, I'd need capital for renovations, for equipment, for... What if I told you I'm looking for a partner, not a tenant?" Anna turned to look at him, confusion clear on her face. "A partner?" Leonardo wheeled further into the space, running his hand along the old bar that lined one wall. "I'm a businessman, Anna. I invest in things that I think will succeed. You know what the most valuable thing is in any business? Capital, trust, loyalty. People who do what they say they're going to do." Leonardo looked at her directly. "Your grandmother spent 30 years with the Bananos. You know what that means? It means she knew how to be loyal, how to keep her mouth shut, how to earn trust. Those are rare qualities. And last night, when you could have just brought me my check and ignored what was happening, you chose to see me as a person. That's even rarer. So you want to invest in my restaurant because I was nice to you? I want to invest in your restaurant because I think you'll succeed, and because I'd rather spend my money on people who have character than people who don't. The fact that you spoke to me in my grandmother's language is just a bonus. Anna walked over to the windows, looking out at Court Street with its mix of old-school Italian bakeries and new coffee shops. What would a partnership look like? I cover the renovation and startup costs. You run the restaurant. We split profits 60-40, with you getting the 40. After 5 years, if you want to buy me out, we can discuss terms. That's insane, Anna said, but Leonardo could see the wheels turning in her mind. See her fighting against hope because hope was dangerous when you'd spent your life scrambling to make ends meet. It's business, Leonardo corrected. Good business. I get a steady return on investment, you get your dream. And maybe I get to eat at a place that has some soul like you said last night. Anna turned to face him fully, and Leonardo saw tears in her eyes. Why are you really doing this? Leonardo considered lying, giving her some polished answer about investment opportunities and market analysis. But this woman had spoken truth to him when he needed it most. She deserved the same in return. Because last night, a woman I'd been seeing for 3 months couldn't handle the idea of being with a man in a wheelchair. She looked at me and saw limitation, saw burden, saw something broken that she didn't have the strength to deal with. And then you, a woman who'd known me for all of 3 hours, looked at me and saw someone worth defending. Someone worth speaking to in the language of respect and family. Leonardo paused. I've spent 2 years since I ended up in this chair trying to prove I'm still the same man I was before. Still powerful, still capable, still worth something. And you know what? I'm tired of proving it. I just want to be around people who see it without the proof. So yeah, maybe this is crazy. Maybe I'm making a business decision based on emotion instead of logic. But I didn't build an empire by always playing it safe. Anna wiped her eyes, then laughed. A genuine, surprised laugh. Your grandmother would have smacked you for that speech. Too many feelings, not enough business sense. You didn't know my grandmother. She was a romantic underneath all the tough talk. So was mine. Anna looked around the space again, and Leonardo could see the moment she decided to take the leap. Okay, let's do this. But I have conditions. Name them. I want creative control over the menu and the atmosphere. This is going to be my restaurant, not some Italian stereotype for tourists. Real food, the kind our grandmothers made. Agreed. And I want to hire local people from the neighborhood. People who need a chance, like you're giving me. As long as they're qualified. And no funny business. I know who you are, Mr. Marino. I'm not naive. But this restaurant is going to be legitimate. Clean books, clean money. No using it for anything except what it is. Leonardo felt a surge of respect for her. She was smart enough to know what he was, brave enough to say it out loud, and principled enough to draw lines. His grandmother would have loved her. You have my word, Leonardo said. This restaurant will be clean. Just good food and honest business. Then we have a deal. They shook hands, her smaller hand warm in his. And Leonardo felt something he hadn't felt since before Chicago. He felt like he was building something again. Not just maintaining an empire but creating something new. Something that mattered in a different way than territory or profits. Over the next 3 months, Leonardo became intimately familiar with every detail of Anna's vision for the restaurant. She named it Roses, after her grandmother, and threw herself into every aspect of the renovation with a kind of passion that reminded Leonardo why he'd gotten into business in the first place. She was there every day, working alongside the contractors Leonardo hired, making decisions about everything from the tile in the bathroom to the weight of the silverware. And Leonardo found himself there too, more often than his business required. He told himself he was protecting his investment, making sure the work was done right. But the truth was more complicated. He liked being around Anna. Liked the way she challenged him when she thought he was wrong, liked the way she asked his opinion and actually listened to his answers, liked the way she never treated his wheelchair as anything other than a chair that happened to have wheels. You know people are talking, Dante mentioned one afternoon when Leonardo was reviewing wine suppliers with Anna instead of attending a meeting about territorial disputes with the Albanian crew in Queens. People are always talking. They're saying you're soft on this girl. That you're distracted. Leonardo looked up from the wine list, his expression dangerous. And what do you think, Dante? Dante had been Leonardo's consigliere for 15 years. He knew when to push and when to back off. I think you seem happier than you've been in 2 years. I think this girl treats you like a man instead of a boss. And I think if anyone has a problem with that, they can take it up with you personally. Smart man. That's why you're my consigliere. But Dante wasn't entirely wrong about the distraction. Leonardo's mind, which used to be entirely focused on the next deal, the next move, the next power play, now found itself wandering to Anna's laugh, or the way she sang while she worked, or the fierce concentration on her face when she was perfecting a recipe. He caught himself looking forward to their afternoon meetings, to the casual conversations that ranged from business to family to dreams. "Tell me something," Anna said one day while they were testing the acoustics in the dining room. "Why did you really stay in the life after what happened in Chicago? You've got enough money to walk away. Why keep doing something that almost killed you?" Leonardo was quiet for a long moment. No one had ever asked him that so directly. "Because it's who I am. It's who my father was, and his father before him. You don't just walk away from family. But you could have family without the violence. Without the danger. Could I? You think if I retired to some beach somewhere, the enemies I've made would just forget? You think the federal prosecutors would stop building cases? Once you're in, Anna, you're in for life. The only way out is prison or death. That's a sad way to live. It's the life I chose." Anna looked at him with those direct eyes that saw too much. "Did you choose it, though? Or were you born into it and just never imagined anything else?" The question rattled Leonardo more than he wanted to admit. He'd spent his entire life in the family business, rising through the ranks, building power, making the Marino name mean something. But had he ever actually chosen it? Or had it simply been the path laid out before him, the only path he could see? "Sometimes the life chooses you," he said finally. "And sometimes," Anna replied gently, "you get to choose again." The restaurant opened on a cold Friday in December, exactly 4 months after that disastrous night at Basilico. Leonardo had invited carefully selected guests for the soft opening, some legitimate business associates, a few restaurant critics he'd cultivated relationships with, and despite his better judgment, some family members. Not the soldiers or the capos, but the wives, the sisters, the people who'd known his grandmother and would appreciate what Anna was trying to create. Rose's was beautiful. Anna had transformed the space into something that felt both elegant and homey, with warm lighting, comfortable seating, and an open kitchen where diners could watch the food being prepared. The menu was small, focused, every dish something Anna had perfected over weeks of testing. No pretension, no fusion nonsense, just honest Italian food made with love. Leonardo sat at his usual table. He had a usual table now, something that amused Anna to no end, and watched Anna work the room. She moved with natural grace, greeting guests, making sure everyone felt welcome, slipping easily between English and Italian when she recognized people from the old neighborhood. She was wearing a simple black dress and her grandmother's cross necklace, and Leonardo thought she'd never looked more beautiful. "You did good, boss," Dante said quietly, appearing at Leonardo's elbow with a glass of wine. "This place, this girl. You did good. It's not about me. Isn't it?" Dante smiled. "You've been different since you met her. Lighter. Like you remembered there's more to life than the next territory war." Before Leonardo could respond, Anna approached the table with a plate. "Special delivery for my business partner. Osso buco, just like you ordered that first night." She set the plate down and their eyes met. In that moment, Leonardo saw his future, And it looked nothing like the path he'd been on for 38 years. It looked like this restaurant, this woman, this life that existed outside the violence and the power plays. It looked like something worth fighting for in a different way. "Anna," he started, but she held up a hand. "Not yet. After service we talk. Right now I have a restaurant to run." But she was smiling, and Leonardo knew she felt it too. This thing growing between them that neither of them had planned, but both of them had stopped fighting. The evening was a triumph. The critics loved the food, the guests raved about the atmosphere, and Anna glowed with the pride of seeing her dream become reality. Leonardo watched from his table, fielding congratulations from business associates and family members alike, but his attention was always on Anna. It was almost midnight when the last guest left, and Anna finally collapsed into the chair across from him. "We did it. We actually did it." "You did it," Leonardo corrected. "I just wrote the checks." "You did more than that." Anna reached across the table and took his hand, a gesture that felt both natural and revolutionary. "You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. You gave me a chance when you had no reason to." "I had reasons." "Yeah. What were they?" Leonardo looked at this incredible woman who'd walked into his life at his lowest moment, and somehow become the best part of it. "At first. 'Cause you saw me. Really saw me, not just the wheelchair or the reputation. But now." He squeezed her hand gently. "Now it's because somewhere between the wine suppliers and the contractor meetings and the menu tastings, I fell in love with you, Anna Mallet." Anna's breath caught, tears filling her eyes. "You can't say things like that to me." "Why not?" "Because I'm already in love with you, and I've been trying so hard not to be. You're Leonardo Marino. You're powerful and dangerous and completely out of my league. And you're my business partner, and there are rules about this kind of thing." Leonardo pulled her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles gently. "To hell with rules. To hell with what I'm supposed to be or what you're supposed to be. All I know is that for the first time since Chicago, I want more than just survival. I want a life. With you. Your family. We'll have to accept it. Anna, I've spent 2 years proving I'm still the same man I was before the wheelchair. But you know what? I don't want to be that man anymore." He was hard and cold and measured everything by power. "You make me want to be better. You make me remember that there's more to life than territory and respect." Anna stood up, walked around the table, and before Leonardo knew what was happening, she was in his lap, her arms around his neck, kissing him with all the passion and fear and hope that had been building between them for months. He wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close, and for the first time since those bullets tore through his spine, Leonardo Marino felt complete. "This is crazy," Anna whispered against his lips. "The best things usually are. Your world is dangerous. So we'll be careful. People will talk. Let them." Leonardo pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. "Anna, I've faced down rival families, federal prosecutors, and assassination attempts. I think I can handle some gossip about who I'm in love with." Anna laughed through her tears. Okay, yes. Let's be crazy together." They sat there in the empty restaurant, holding each other while the city lights sparkled through the windows. Two people from completely different worlds who'd found something neither of them had been looking for. The next 6 months were the happiest of Leonardo's life. Rosa's became the hottest reservation in Brooklyn, with food critics praising Anna's authentic approach and word spreading through the neighborhood that this was the real deal. Leonardo's involvement was carefully downplayed in the press, just a silent investor, nothing to see here, but in the neighborhood everyone knew. The restaurant had the Marino family's protection, which meant it had everyone's respect. But more important than the success was what happened after hours, when the restaurant closed and Anna and Leonardo would sit together, talking about everything and nothing. She told him about growing up in Washington Heights, about her grandmother's stories, about her dreams of expanding to multiple locations someday. He told her about his childhood in Brooklyn, about the pressure of living up to his father's name, about the weight of running an empire that demanded everything and gave back only more demands. Sometimes I think about what life would be like if I'd made different choices, Leonardo admitted one night in his penthouse. Anna had started staying over more often, her presence transforming his cold, modern space into something that felt like home. If I'd gone to college like my mother wanted, become a lawyer maybe. Something legitimate. Anna was curled up beside him on the couch, her head on his shoulder. You'd have been miserable. Too much fire in you for a courtroom. Maybe. But I'd have both my legs. She shifted to look at him. Leo, you know I don't care about the wheelchair, right? I know you know that intellectually, but I need you to really believe it. When I look at you, I see the man who believed in a waitress with a dream. I see the man who speaks his grandmother's language and honors his family. I see strength and loyalty and, she smiled, pretty great eyes. The chair is just logistics. It's not who you are. Leonardo pulled her closer, kissing the top of her head. These moments, these quiet conversations in the dark, this was what he'd been missing his entire life. Not power or respect or fear. Connection. Love. But peace, Leonardo had learned, never lasted long in his world. The threat came from an unexpected direction. Not a rival family, not the feds, but from within his own organization. Salvatore Gallo, one of his capos who ran operations in Staten Island, had been making noise for months about Leonardo's distraction. About how the boss was going soft, spending too much time with his girlfriend and not enough time on business. About how maybe the Marino family needed leadership that could stand on its own 2 feet. Dante brought the news one afternoon while Leonardo was at Rose's, watching Anna train her new sous chef. We've got a problem. Sal's been talking to some of the soldiers. Testing loyalty. He's making a move, boss. Leonardo's expression didn't change, but inside, he felt the old coldness return. The predator that had built the Marino empire. How many are with him? Maybe a dozen. Most of the crew is still loyal to you. But Sal's got connections with the Philadelphia family. If he moves, he won't be alone. Anna noticed Leonardo's changed demeanor from across the kitchen. She excused herself and came over. What's wrong? Business, Leonardo said shortly. Then, seeing the concern in her eyes, he softened. Family business. Nothing for you to worry about. Don't do that. Anna's voice was firm. Don't shut me out. I know what you are, Leo. I've always known. If there's danger, I want to know about it. Leonardo looked at Dante, who shrugged. She's right, boss. If Sal makes a move, he might try to get to you through her. She should be aware. Someone wants to hurt you, Anna asked, her face paling. Someone wants to take over, Leonardo explained. One of my capos thinks I'm weak now. Thinks the organization needs stronger leadership. Stronger meaning someone who can walk. Meaning someone who's willing to put business before everything else. Including you. Anna absorbed this, and Leonardo watched her process the reality of his world. This was the test, he realized. This was the moment when she'd understand what it really meant to be with him. Not the romantic dinners or the business partnership or the quiet nights in his penthouse. The violence, the danger, the fact that people might die because of decisions he had to make. What are you going to do? Anna asked quietly. What I have to do. What I've always done. I'm going to eliminate the threat before it eliminates me. By eliminate, you mean? Yes. Anna was quiet for a long moment. And if you don't? If you let him make his move? Then I'm dead, and probably Dante, and everyone else who stayed loyal to me. And maybe you, if Sal decides to make a point. Leonardo took her hand. This is the life, Anna. This is what I tried to tell you. There's no walking away. There's only survival. Then survive, Anna said fiercely. Do what you have to do. But come back to me. Promise me you'll come back. Leonardo pulled her close, holding her like she was the only thing keeping him tethered to humanity. I promise. The meeting with Sal happened 3 days later, at one of Leonardo's social clubs in Little Italy. Neutral ground, with representatives from 3 other families present as witnesses. This was how disputes were settled in their world. Not in the streets with bullets, but in backrooms with words and careful negotiations. Unless words failed, then it was bullets. Sal walked in with his crew, 6 men who looked ready for war. Leonardo sat at the head of the table in his wheelchair, Dante on his right. His most trusted soldiers positioned strategically around the room. The air was thick with tension. Sal, Leonardo greeted him calmly. I hear you have concerns about my leadership. Sal was a big man, old school, the kind who believed power came from intimidation. Concerns? Leo, I've got more than concerns. Look at you. You're so wrapped up with that girl and her restaurant you can't even focus on business. The Russians are expanding, the Albanians are pushing into our territory, and you're what? Playing restaurant investor. I'm diversifying our holdings, Leonardo replied. Building legitimate income streams. Something the feds can't touch. That's good leadership, Sal. That's weakness. The Marino family was built on strength. Your father, God rest his soul. He knew how to command respect. But you, Sal gestured at the wheelchair. You can't even stand up to shake a man's hand anymore. How are you supposed to lead? The room went silent. The other family representatives shifted uncomfortably. Insulting a boss's disability was crossing a line, even in a dispute. Leonardo's voice when he spoke was ice. My father built this family on loyalty and intelligence, not on theatrics and posturing. I've made the Marino family more profitable in 5 years than he did in 20. I've expanded our operations, cleaned up our vulnerabilities, and kept every single one of our people out of federal prison. All from this chair. So tell me, Sal, what exactly have you done except complain? I've kept things running in Staten Island while you play house. You've been skimming 20% off the top of your collections, Leonardo interrupted. Did you think I didn't know? Did you think I was too distracted to notice that your numbers haven't added up for the past 8 months? Sal's face went red. That's a lie. Dante, show him. Dante slid a folder across the table. Financial records, surveillance photos, witness statements, everything documenting Sal's theft from the family. It was damning and everyone in the room knew it. You've been stealing from the family, Leonardo said, his voice carrying the weight of judgment. And now you're trying to cover it up with accusations of weakness. That's not just disloyal, Sal. That's stupid. Sal stood up, his hand moving toward his jacket, but before he could draw whatever weapon he had concealed there, Leonardo's soldiers moved. In seconds, Sal's crew was disarmed and Sal himself was staring down the barrel of 3 different guns. Sit down, Leonardo commanded. Sat. Here's what's going to happen, Leonardo continued. You're going to retire, effective immediately. You'll keep your life, which is more generosity than you deserve, but you'll leave New York. I don't care where you go, Florida, Nevada, California. Just be gone by Friday. Your crew will be absorbed into other operations. Your territories will be redistributed. And if I ever see you in New York again, Sal, I'll forget about mercy. You can't do this. I just did. Leonardo looked around the room at the witnesses from the other families. Does anyone here object to my handling of this matter? Silence. The other family representatives knew better than to get involved in internal Marino business, especially when Leonardo was clearly in the right. Good. Sal, get out of my city. Sal left, humiliated and defeated, his crew trailing behind him like whipped dogs. When the room cleared except for Dante and Leonardo's closest men, Dante whistled low. Boss, you've still got it. Nobody's going to question your leadership after that. But Leonardo felt no satisfaction. Just exhaustion. I'm tired, Dante. Tired of this. The threats, the politics, the constant need to prove myself. I've been doing this for 20 years. What are you saying? Leonardo looked at his consigliere, his oldest friend. I'm saying maybe Anna was right. Maybe I don't have to keep doing this forever. Maybe there's another way. Over the next month, Leonardo began the careful process of restructuring the Marino family operations. He promoted loyal capos, strengthened legitimate businesses, and slowly started distancing himself from the day-to-day criminal operations. It was delicate work. You couldn't just walk away from La Cosa Nostra, but Leonardo was smart enough to do it gradually, to make it look like evolution rather than retreat. Anna watched this transformation with a mixture of hope and fear. You're really doing this. Stepping back. Not stepping back. Stepping different. I'll always be Leonardo Marino, but maybe I can be a version of him that doesn't have to constantly look over his shoulder. He pulled her close. I want a life with you, Anna. Real life. I want to wake up thinking about what's for dinner at Rose's, not which family is making a move on our territory. I want to be your partner, not just in business but in everything. What does that mean? Leonardo reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. It means marry me, Anna Mallet. Marry me and let's build something together that has nothing to do with territory or respect or power. Let's build a family. Anna stared at the ring, a simple, perfect diamond that caught the light like a promise. Tears streamed down her face. You're serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. Love you. You saved me, Anna. Not just that night at Basilico, but every day since. You showed me there was more to life than what I was living. So yeah, I'm serious. Be my wife. Let me spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you. Yes, Anna whispered. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. They were married 6 months later in a small ceremony in Brooklyn, at a church where Leonardo's grandmother had been baptized and Anna's grandmother had lit candles every Sunday. It was intimate, just close family and friends, the people who mattered, not the associates and soldiers and politicians who would have filled a big society wedding. Anna wore her grandmother's dress, altered to fit her, and Leonardo wore his grandfather's watch. When the priest asked if anyone objected to the union, there was a moment of tension. You never knew with Leonardo's world, but the church remained silent. And when Leonardo said, I do, he meant it with every fiber of his being. The reception was held at Rose's, naturally. Anna had insisted on cooking, despite everyone telling her that brides weren't supposed to work their own wedding receptions. But Anna being Anna, she'd spent the morning preparing dishes with her sous chef, wanting everything to be perfect. The restaurant was filled with the mingled scents of her grandmother's recipes and Leonardo's grandmother's traditions. 2 families, 2 worlds, coming together in food and celebration. Leonardo's mother, who'd been skeptical at first about her son marrying a waitress with no family connections, pulled Anna aside during the reception. I was wrong about you, she said simply. I thought you were after his money or his power. But you make my son happy. You make him smile like he did before the world got hard. Thank you for giving him back to me. Anna hugged her future mother-in-law, feeling the acceptance she'd been craving. He gave me back to myself too. We saved each other. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, Leonardo and Anna found themselves alone in the restaurant, just like that first night after the opening. But everything was different now. They weren't just business partners or lovers or friends. They were married. They were family. Mrs. Marino, Leonardo said, testing out the name. Still getting used to that, Anna admitted. Though I'm keeping Mallet for the restaurant. Roses by Anna Mallet sounds better than Roses by Anna Marino. Too many vowels. Leonardo laughed. Whatever you want. As long as I get to wake up next to you every morning, you can call yourself whatever you like. What do we do now? Anna asked, settling into his lap, her wedding dress pooling around them like a cloud. Now we live. We run your restaurant. Our restaurant. Our restaurant, Leonardo corrected with a smile. We build a life. Maybe have some kids someday if you want. Maybe travel. Maybe just exist without constantly waiting for the next threat or the next war. Is that possible? In your world? I'm making it possible. I've earned the right to choose my own path, Anna. And I choose this. Choose you. I choose peace. She kissed him then, deep and sweet and full of promise. Then that's what we'll have. Is love. A life worth living. And for the first time since those bullets shattered his spine in Chicago, Leonardo Marino believed in happiness. Not the temporary satisfaction of power or respect or victory, but real, lasting happiness. The kind that came from finding someone who saw you, really saw you, and loved you anyway. The kind that came from building something together that mattered more than territory or money or reputation. He'd been paralyzed in more ways than one before Anna walked into his life. Paralyzed by his past, by expectations, by the belief that his worth was measured in power and fear. She'd freed him from all of that. She'd shown him that a man's true strength wasn't in his legs or his soldiers or his empire. It was in his heart, his integrity, his capacity to love and be loved. As they sat together in the restaurant named after her grandmother, in the neighborhood where his grandmother had raised her family, Leonardo realized that this was the empire worth building. Not criminal operations or legitimate fronts, but this, a marriage, a partnership, a love that transformed everything it touched. They'd both been broken in different ways. He by bullets and betrayal, she by a world that told her that dreams were for people with money and connections. But together they'd become whole. Together they'd created something beautiful out of pain and possibility. The wheelchair would always be part of Leonardo's life. But it was no longer the defining feature. He was no longer the paralyzed mafia boss. He was simply Leonardo, Anna's husband, Rosa's partner, a man who'd learned that real power came not from what you could take, but from what you could give. Not from who feared you, but from who loved you. Not from standing above others, but from building something meaningful with someone who saw you as an equal. And as the Brooklyn night settled over Court Street, as the lights of the restaurant glowed warm against the cold urban landscape, Leonardo Marino held his wife and felt something he'd thought he'd lost forever in that Chicago warehouse. He felt whole. So what did you think of Leonardo and Anna's story? Could you feel the connection between them, the way they saved each other when they needed it most? Drop a comment below and let us know your thoughts. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button because tomorrow we've got another incredible story coming your way that you absolutely won't want to miss. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments. We love hearing from our global family. Until next time, remember, sometimes the people who save us show up in the most unexpected moments, speaking the language of our hearts when we need it most.